Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm very excited to be here. I'm also very excited to talk to you a little bit about some backyard games that you can play at your house or maybe even at a local park, somewhere where you have lots of space and you're ready to have some fun. So I'm going to first go over the agenda for today. Can everyone see my screen right now? Are we good here on the screen? All right, let me see if I can pull up here in my chat here. Make sure that I have
everyone can see it.
All right, awesome. Okay, so our agenda today, I just wanted to give you a brief introduction, which we got that covered. And then some of the backyard games that we are going to be learning about today include a giant tic-tac-toe game, a beanbag tossing game, a laundry basket toss game, a sponge and bucket toss game, pool noodle bowling, and pool noodle ring toss. And then we'll wrap up our lesson today with a little question and answer session. So the first game that we're going to talk about is going to be the giant tic-tac-toe game. So up on the screen, you will see what this game kind of looks like. So basically for this game, the equipment that you need will be 9 hula hoops. So you can use a hula hoop like this, or you could even use some outdoor sidewalk chalk. So some of us might not have hula hoops. I did buy that hula hoop from the Dollar Tree, so it was only $1. And if you get 9 of them, that's $9. But if you want to make it even cheaper, you can use sidewalk chalk. And this little pack here was only $1. And you can draw large circles on your sidewalk. Also, what you'll need for this game are either paper plates. These ones actually are plastic plates that you can use, or you could always use a Frisbee or something like that. You could also, if you wanted, use different color socks. So right here, I have a pair of socks that I balled up right here. You could use another color. So one could be the X, one could be the O. So just so that they're different, so that you can differentiate between you and your friend that you might be playing with, or maybe a sibling or a babysitter or an adult. And so you can play this game just about anywhere. You don't need a whole lot of space for it. But I do want to talk to you a little bit about how to play this game. So I'm sure many of you have played a regular tic-tac-toe on a piece of paper. So basically, you have kind of an understanding of how to play the game. I'm going to review it a little bit for you. So this game is played on a grid that includes 3 squares by 3 squares. So if you see on the screen here, you'll see the 3 squares by 3 squares for a total of 9. So one player is the X and the other player is the O. If you are playing with 2 different color socks, one player could maybe be the black socks and maybe someone has the red socks. So the players take turns putting their marks in the empty squares. So the first player chooses which square they would like to go to, and then it'll be the next player's turn and they will choose what square they would like to go to. If you are playing with the Frisbees, you could do this by tossing the Frisbee into the hula hoop. If you are playing with paper plates, you could also toss those in there as well if you would like. If you're playing with the socks or maybe a bean bag, you could gently either toss them in there or set them in there gently as well. So players take turns putting their marks in the empty square. The first player to get 3 of their marks in a row, and this could be up and down, it could be diagonal, or it could be across. So as long as you get 3 in the row, that is the winner. And when all 9 squares are full, the game is over. You can reset and play again. So this is a game that you can play, like I said, in your backyard, at a park, somewhere where you have plenty of space to be able to do this. So that is the giant tic-tac-toe game. The next game that I want to go over with you is the beanbag toss game. So for this game, you can use bean bags. You could also use paper plates or Frisbees for the different numbers here. And like I said with the last game, you could also just draw this all on your sidewalk. As long as you have some sort of equipment to toss, you'll be able to play this game. You could also use socks, sidewalk chalk. If you wanted to use sponges, buckets, or plastic bins to toss them in, you could absolutely do that too. So for this game, like many tossing games, this can be played with 1, 2, 3, or even 4 players. And this game you can actually use to help to improve your math skills. So you're adding and also subtracting in here as well for this game. So each team or if it's just single players, they have an even amount of bean bags or an even amount of socks or even amount of sponges, whatever the piece of equipment is. Just make sure that each player has an even amount. And if you're playing by yourself, you could also just make sure that you have a couple different things that you can toss to try to get on one of the plates if you would. Each player throws from behind the foul line. So the foul line is basically just a designated line that everyone stands behind just to make sure that it's fair and that everyone tosses from the same spot. If the beanbag or the piece of equipment lands on a spot with a number, the player adds that number to their team's score. So on the screen here, you'll see that this one is touching the plate, so that counts for their score. So they would add 30 points to their score. So 0 plus 30 equals 30. And then you see on the screen here that some of these bean bags did not make it onto a plate. So these ones would not count towards the score. So if you were this person that made this toss, you would just have 30 points here. If the two players land on the same number in a round, the bean bags cancel out. So for example, say that the yellow bean bag landed on 30 and then maybe the green bean bag landed on 30. Those would cancel out and no points would be added to the score. So once each team or player have thrown all of their bean bags, that round is over. And you want to alternate between the players. So if you're playing with a friend, you go first or your friend goes first, and then you just switch until all of the bean bags or the pieces of equipment have all been thrown. And after each round, you will add up your points. And the first team or the first player that earns 50 or 500 points will win that game. And then you could play this game, to whatever number of points that you would like. 500 was just a number that I came up with, but you could change that to either 100, 200, 300, whatever number you would like to play to, as long as the numbers on the plates add up to that number, then you'll be okay. So you wouldn't want to play to like 101 because the plates wouldn't add up to that number. So you want to make sure that it would be like an even number that they would add up to. But that is how you would play the bean bag tossing game. Now, this next game that I'm going to explain is very similar to the bean bag tossing game. So this is actually played with either a ball and a basket, and it is another tossing game. So let's go over the equipment first here. So for this game, I thought it would be fun to play with laundry baskets. So a laundry basket could be one of these larger ones that you see on the screen here, or it could be a smaller one. I got this one at the Dollar Tree for only $1. So you could maybe get like 3 or 4 or even 5 of these, which would add up to about $3, $4, or $5. And then you would just put them in a line just like you see on the screen there. And then you would just write on maybe a note card or a sticky note the number that each basket is worth. And then you could use just about any kind of equipment that you could think of that you'd be able to toss. So for my example, I have a little foam football that you could toss in there, but you could also use another little foam basketball or a foam soccer ball. You could even use a sponge, or these are really fun, the splash balls that you could get as well. Or just like with the other game, you could also use a pair of socks. And with a laundry basket, the socks could be one of your best options. So you could just, roll up a couple of pairs of socks and be able to play this game. But you could, do this with just about any kind of equipment that you would be tossing into, and anything that you can toss. So this basket and ball game can be played just like the last game with 1, 2, 3, or 4 players. Each team or each player gets an even amount to throw. They throw one at a time, alternating back and forth. So the example, player 1 throws and then player 2 throws. So just making sure that you're being fair. Each player throwing from behind the foul line, so that designated line that you and your friend decide to throw behind is always important. If the ball lands in the basket, the player adds that number to their team score. If 2 players land in the same basket in a round, they actually cancel out. So for example, maybe each person tosses it in the 10 basket, then no points would be added to their score. But if someone tosses it in the 20 basket and someone tosses in the 40 basket, the first player would get 20 points and the second player would get 40 points. So once each team or each player has thrown all of the balls, that round is over. And after each round, the player will add up their points. So for example, maybe the first person scores 20 and the second scores 40. The first team or the first player that earns 500 points wins the game. And you could switch this, like I said before, to any increment number as long as the baskets add up to that amount. So you could do 200 or 300 or even 100. You can even go all the way up to 1,000, whatever you and your friend decide. That is how you could play it. You could also play this game individually. And like I said before, this game will really help to improve your adding skills. All right, the next game that I want to go over with you is the sponge and bucket toss game. Very similar to the last two, just a couple different pieces of equipment that you would use. And this game I think is really fun, especially on a hot day. I don't know about you, but in this area, the pools might not be open this summer. So finding an activity that incorporates water and cools you off on a hot day is something that I have been looking forward to this summer, with the pools in this area not being opened quite yet. So for this game, all you would need is a bucket. And you can use a couple different buckets to be able to play this game. You might have some of those laying around the house. Also, you would either need like a sponge of some sort, or like I said before, those splash balls. These are really fun. All of this equipment, like I said before, was also purchased at the Dollar Tree for $1 each. So if you don't have that equipment around your house, you could always you and your parent can run out to the store and maybe get a couple of these pieces of equipment to play. And this game, very similar to the other two games, except this one, there are a couple different ways that you could play this game. So for this game, you can play it just like the other tossing games, where you put numbers on the buckets and then you add up those points. You could also do this game as kind of like a bucket elimination game. So if you added up all of these buckets here, so for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think there might be around 8 buckets there. Every time you land either the sponge or the splash ball or something like that in a bucket, you can move that bucket to the side. And then you could see if the next person could toss it in a bucket, then you move that bucket to the side. And you can see how many throws it could take you to remove all of the buckets, and then you could line them all back up. So there are a couple different ways that you could play this game, but either way, this game is going to help you to cool off in the hot weather. Playing with water is always a fun way to, cool off on a really hot day, which is very hot today, around 80 degrees here in Pittsburgh, maybe a little bit hotter this afternoon, but definitely something that you could, play to cool off. Another fun game. Now, this game is one of my favorite games to play in the backyard. So this game is called Pool Noodle Bowling. So another way that you can incorporate something on a hot day. So one of my favorite pieces of equipment that you can use to play this game, and also the next game that we're going to talk about, is a pool noodle. This is a very versatile piece of equipment, and it's also, like the other pieces of equipment, very inexpensive. One of these at the Dollar Tree is only $1. So to play this game, I am going to show you how exactly to build it. So this game, you will need the help of an adult to be able to set up and to really build this game. So some of the equipment that you might need to play this game include pool noodles. So about 4 or 5 pool noodles will get you to set up the entire game. A yoga mat, but you don't necessarily have to use a yoga mat. You could just use, the grass or the cement, just as long as you have a surface at the bottom to use as your bowling lane. 2 balls that will roll, so you could use the 2 foam balls that I showed you earlier. You also could use maybe a softball, a baseball, a basketball, a soccer ball, even a beach ball. Any kind of ball that you have that will be able to be rolled is something that you want to use. You could even use a tennis ball or a racquetball as well. Whatever you have around the house that can roll, you can use for this game. Also for this game, you want to be able to either have scissors or a sharp edge. a marker, and either tape or toothpicks. And that will help us to build the bowling alley. If you do not have access to a pool noodle, you could also play this game using empty water bottles, like I have up on the screen here. So I will show you how we build the pool noodle game, but if you don't have pool noodles, but you do have a bunch of empty water bottles, you can play this game in your own backyard. So you would just, write the numbers on top of the water bottles here, and then use the ball to knock them over. So let's go over how to make the pool noodle bowling game. So first step, step one, ask your parent or guardian for help. Or if you have a babysitter or an older sibling or an adult that's looking after you, you want to make sure that you ask them for help because they are going to need to cut the pool noodles for this game. Step two, have your parent or guardian cut the pool noodles to size. Step three, assemble the pool noodle bowling lane. Step four, set the pool noodles in the triangle formation that we have here on the screen. And then step five, play pool noodle bowling. So let's go over each one of these steps. So first, step one, make sure that you ask a trusted adult for help. Like I said, they are going to be needing to be able to cut the pool noodles. Step two, have your parent or guardian cut the pool noodles to size. So I'm going to show you how to cut the pool noodles. Just give me 1 second while I bring over my little setup here that I have.
Hey, Ms. Burneisen.
Yeah.
When you're demonstrating, I would suggest not sharing your screen, just so that way we can see your screen a lot bigger.
Oh, sure.
There we go.
All right. Are you still able to see me?
We are.
Okay, awesome. All right. Could you let me know once you see the cutting board here? Are you able to see that?
A little bit lower.
A little lower?
There we go.
Okay. So what I have here is a pool noodle, and I also have a sharp serrated knife. Like I said, you want to make sure that you have an adult help you with cutting the pool noodles. You also probably could use a really sharp pair of scissors, but I find that the easiest way to do this is with a serrated knife so that you get a nice clean cut. So when you are cutting the pool noodles, you want to make sure that it's going to be nice and even. So you could use a ruler to be able to measure out the different sizes that you'll need for each of the bowling pins. So give me 1 second while I pull up a bowling pin that I already have cut. So if you see, they are a little bit of a smaller size. They are about 10 inches long. So if you wanted to, you could use a marker to measure this out, or the ruler to measure this out as well. And once you get to about 10 inches, you're gonna mark that off here, and then you are just going to slice with using the serrated knife to that size. And you're going to do that 10 times so that you have 10 of the pool noodles. And then the next step, you would write a number on the pool noodle. So this will be your bowling pin that you're going to be knocking over. Like I said, you're going to have 10 of them. So you'll have numbers between 1 and 10 on your pool noodles. Now we're going to set that aside. So once you cut all of those pool noodles, the next step will be to, let me pull up here, will be to create your bowling lane. So with this pool noodle here, you're going to want to cut it to be about the same width as the yoga mat. So the yoga mat, if I have it measured out right here, is going to be about half of the width of your pool noodle. So if you have that kind of marked off in your head, you're going to take that serrated knife and you're just going to slice that right down the middle there. And so that cuts your bowling lane into about half, just a little bit under half here. So once you have that cut, you also are going to have 2 full length pool noodles. So you'll have that together. right here. And then basically what you're going to do is you can either use toothpicks to set these together, or you could tape these off so that they make kind of like a rectangle shape. So I'm going to use the tape here. Let me set this down and grab my piece of tape. I will set this aside. And then you just want these edges to be touching. So if you hold these together, rip off a piece of tape, and you just want these to hold together. I flip this over onto the opposite side. Tape that on that edge. I'm going to do one more on the top just to make sure that it stays nice. And then you're going to do that on both sides. Put the other whole noodle here. Just so that it is nice and even. Like I said before, if you wanted to, you could use some toothpicks and push those in there, but I think that the tape holds a little bit nicer than the toothpicks do. And at the end of our lesson, I am going to share with you the PowerPoint presentation that includes each of these step-by-step directions so that you can make this at home with your family. So once you have that squared away, you will lay this down on your yoga mat. I'm going to move my computer, hoping that you can see this a little bit better. All right, are you able to see my little bowling alley that I have right here? I need to move it down a little bit more.
We're able to see it fine.
Okay, perfect. All right, so once you have those pieces set up here, you see on my rug here, I do have a yoga mat. So these pieces are just laid out like so. And then with your bowling pins, you are just going to set these up in order from 1 to 10 in a triangle shape. So the first one that you'll put up is the 1, and that will be the front pin. We'll set that here. And then we'll go with the next numbers in order. So we got 2. Let's see if I can find 3. And some of these are not sitting completely flat, and that's okay, because they're going to get knocked down anyway once we start rolling. And all right, so we have them all in order in about a triangle formation. Just do the best you can. Sometimes we have to make some modifications here. So we have our bowling alley set up. We also have our entire lane set up. And then, like I said before, you're going to use 2 balls that somehow roll. So it doesn't matter what kind of ball you use, as long as they're able to roll down that lane and knock them over. So when you do this, I like to stand right behind the edge of the yoga mat. And so you'll just take 1 ball and you're going to underhand roll to see how many you knock over. Oh, I didn't knock over any that time. Oh, and then I knocked them all over that time. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about how to score in bowling. So you and a friend, or you could also play this just by yourself, if you would like to as well, are going to be able to play this game and also learn how to score the game. Let me see if I can share my screen back with you. Give me 1 second. All right.
So I did want to say, we did have a few questions about what kind of ball to use. So if you were going to suggest exactly what kind of ball that our friend should get for this game, what would you suggest?
I would suggest one of those foam balls, something that can fit in your hand nice and easy. Let me show you these again. These I got from the Dollar Tree for $1 a piece, but they're just kind of like a little fun foam ball that you can use. They're not too heavy, but something that I can throw nice and easy that's not going to hurt anyone or anything. These are what I would recommend, but you could use just about any type of ball as long as it rolls. So it could be a tennis ball, a racket ball, even a small basketball or a small soccer ball, the real balls as well. It could be a baseball, as long as it's able to roll and that you're not throwing it too hard, because we don't want anyone to get hurt. Do we have any other questions about that?
Someone else asked, Laura wanted to know, can you space the pins a little bit apart, or do they all have to be touching?
So they actually should be touching at some point, because in order for them all to knock over, you want to make sure that they are touching up to each other so that they can knock each other over. But if you want to challenge yourself, you can absolutely spread them out a little bit more. If having them too close is a little bit too easy, you can absolutely do that too. Any other questions?
Yeah, our friend Zakari wanted to know, could they use something like a football too? I would imagine a round ball would be best, right?
A round ball would be best. A football would kind of, go back and forth and might not actually, roll them over as nice as a round ball would. It just rolls a little bit differently than a more round shaped ball.
All right, I think we can move on at this point.
All right, awesome. Okay, so how to play this game. So if you've never bowled before, if you're not sure how exactly to play bowling, the goal is to knock down all 10 of the pins. Each frame consists of throwing the ball twice to knock down all of the pins. So each person that's playing gets 2 throws of the ball for their 1 turn. If you knock down all of the pins with the first ball, it is called a strike. But if you do what I did when you saw me throw, if you knock down all of the pins with the second ball, it is called a spare. If you bowl a strike within the 10th frame, you get 2 more balls. If you throw a spare, you get 1 more ball. So for example, if you throw maybe 2 pins the first time, and maybe the second time you knock down 5 pins, your score for that round would be 7. So you are going to add however many pins you knock down for each one of your throws, and that will be your score for the first round. And you will have 10 rounds to be able to get the highest score possible. All right, so I want to show you just what a scorecard kind of looks like for bowling. So scoring is based on the number that you knock down. So when you knock down 1 pin, you get 1 point. For my example in the last round, if you knock down 2 pins and then 5 pins, you get a total of 7. So you can put your player names here on the left-hand side, and then for each one of these rounds, it is actually called a frame. So for the first frame, for example, if I got 2 and then 5, I would write down 2 plus 5 equals 7. So I would write a 7 right in that first round. And so you would go for each one of these frames, adding those up. However, if you get a spare or a strike, your scoring changes a little bit. So for example, if you bowl a spare, which means like what I did when I tossed it in my example, the first time I didn't get any, and then the second time I knocked down all of the pins. So I would actually get to add the pins in the next ball that I throw. So for the next round, for example, maybe I would have thrown a 3. So in the first frame, I knocked down all 10 of them. So it would be 10 plus 3 for the next round. So then my score right there would be 13 plus whatever my next ball was. So maybe I knocked down 1 more pin. So then my total for those 2 squares would be 14. So it's kind of an added bonus when you either get a strike or a spare. So for strikes, it's a little bit different. You actually get 2 balls. So you add up the next 2 balls. So for that example, maybe the first round I got 10, then I got a 3, and then I got a 1. So I would actually be able to put in that first square 14. And then I would get to count that 3 and that 1 again in the next square. So that would add up to 13 plus 4, 17. So I would get to add that in my second square. So keeping score can be a little bit challenging, especially if you've never done it before. So being able to kind of add up your scores is a fun way to be competitive, but just going out there and trying to knock down as many pins and set them back up that you can is also a great way to keep track in bowling. If you go to an actual bowling alley, which I'm not sure if they're open up in your area, I know they're not open in my area, but they actually keep score for you using an automatic pin system. So that's one of the easiest ways to keep track of bowling. But what I like to do, I just like to bowl for fun. So I'll just try to see how many I can knock down and set back up so that I don't have to worry so much about keeping track of my score using the score sheet. Do we have any questions about that? I know I went over that pretty quickly.
Not seeing any questions.
Okay. Yeah, like I said before, sometimes keeping track in bowling can be pretty challenging, and I know that I went through that a little bit quick. But again, you can refer to the slides at the end of this lesson, and I will make sure to give this to you, and you can learn a little bit more about how to keep score. But as long as you're going out there trying and having some fun while you're trying to knock down as many pins as you can, that's a great way to do it as well. So for my final game today, this is a pool noodle tossing game. I think this game can be really closely related to horseshoes. If you've ever played horseshoes, or if maybe your parents have played horseshoes, this is a great backyard game, again, using a pool noodle, which makes it really fun as well. So some of the equipment that you will need would be some pool noodles, or you could also use hula hoops for this too. And then you want to make sure that you have something that can go into the ground. So for example, they use some pool noodles that they just stuck in the ground here. But you could use like a wooden stake or something like that. Anything that you can kind of toss around can be used for this game. Also, you want to make sure that you have some tape to be able to tape the pool noodles together. So how you're going to make this game, again, you want to make sure that your step 1, ask an adult for help. It's also fun to be able to create some games, with an adult, with a friend, with a babysitter, whoever is a trusted adult around you. Make sure that you ask them for some help. You're going to have an adult cut 2 pool noodles in half, which make the stakes that you'll put in the ground. Step 3, you're going to tape the pool noodles together at the ends. You also are going to have an adult place the stakes actually in the ground because they might have to push really hard to get them in there. And then step 5, you're going to play the pool tossing game. So we'll go over each one of these steps. So step 1, you're going to ask someone for help, a trusted adult for help. Step 2, you're going to have an adult cut a pool noodle in half. So you'll just need 1 pool noodle that's cut in half. And I showed you how to do that with the last game. So they can either use scissors or a serrated knife to be able to measure out and cut that pool noodle in half. And then the next step that you're going to do, you're going to tape the pool noodles together at the ends. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I want to show you how to do this. So you will take your pool noodle right here, and then you're going to fold it in half. And when you fold it in half, where it meets, that's actually where you're going to tape. And I'm going to show you how to do that here. If I can get my tape to cooperate with me. So you're just going to kind of hold this together with one hand, tape around with the other. Just like so. And I like to use like a colorful duct tape to make this a little bit more fun, but any kind of tape that you have around the house will do as well. So once you tape that, it'll make it into a circle or like a little loop that you'll have here. And this is what you'll use to toss to play your game. So we'll go back to my screen share here. And so step 3, tape the pool noodles together. And then you want to try to have like 2 for each person. If you're playing with one other person, just a total of 4 of those brown pool noodles will be good. Step 5, you're going to have an adult place the stakes in the ground. You could also use a like a potted plant or something, something with soil in it. If you don't have like grass or ground to stick it in, that would work too. You could stick that pool noodle right into like the soil in a potted plant, something like that as well.
So Dorothy wanted to know, what if you don't have pool noodles? If you wanted to use something else beyond a pool noodle, what could you use?
If you don't have a pool noodle, I would suggest maybe using a paper towel roll. That could, either be kind of bent in that circular shape, or you could use maybe like a hair scrunchie or a hair tie to toss that around the, maybe even a toilet paper roll or a paper towel roll. I think that could work for that as well. Or any kind of round circular shape that you have. I know that they have some Frisbees. So I know this is a paper plate, but you could also cut out a circle in the middle of that. And then that could also be used for that. It had the hole in the middle. But I do know that they make Frisbees that are circular like this, that have the hole cut out. So you could use, a Frisbee that's shaped like that, or cut the hole out of a paper plate or a plastic plate. That could also work. Any other questions?
I don't see any at the moment. They are, Laura brought this up. Pool noodles are available just about everywhere at Dollar Tree or at a Target or at a Five Below. So if you have any of those stores around, those are great. But once again, hey, this is your game, guys. So you can be creative. If you want to use a paper towel roll and take some straws and tape them all together, although I think that would be a lot more challenging, you could do that too. However you want to set this up, it is your game and your world.
Absolutely, yeah. Any of the ideas that I had with replacing the equipment you can do, or make it fun. Come up with your own. Start a new and exciting way to play these kind of basic games, and make it your own. I love that idea. Make it fun, and also part of the experience of creating these games is building them at the same time. So building something and being able to play that game, however you imagine it, is part of the fun in these backyard games. So I do want to go over this last part, and it is how to play the pool noodle tossing game. So like I said, you can either play this game just by trying to toss it around the stakes in the ground or the pool noodles in the ground, or you could play it as Horseshoes. So Horseshoes is a fun backyard game, a lifetime game, a game that you can play throughout your entire life. But Horseshoes can kind of be a little bit dangerous, especially if you're not paying attention or if you've never played the game before. Because playing with the horseshoes, they are made out of metal. The stakes are made out of metal, so it can be a little bit more dangerous than this version. So I think this game, playing this pool noodle tossing game is the safest way to still play Horseshoes, but have a lot softer equipment so that no one gets hurt. So the game of Horseshoes can be played with 2 or 4 players. The object of the game is to toss the pool noodles or the hula hoops around the stakes in the ground. So when 2 players are playing, they each stand at the same stake and throw towards the opposite stake. So if you see in the picture here, this little girl is standing behind one of the stakes and she's trying to toss it on the opposite stake. So if you and your friend want to play this game together, you both would stand at the same side for your turns. So the game, when teams are playing, when two teams are playing, so if maybe it's a 4 total, you would so a team would stand here, and then one player would stand here on one team, the other player on the other team would stand here, and then your partner, your teammate, would stand at the opposite stake. So the game is played until one team or one player scores 21 points. And in this game, there are 4 ways to score. So the closest hula hoop or noodle to the stake is worth 1 point. So you're going to throw 2 of the hula hoops, and your friend or your partner or your teammate will also throw 2. So whoever has the closest hula hoop or pool noodle to the stake, they will get 1 point unless someone gets it on the stake. So if there is a leaner, this is when a hula hoop or a pool noodle is leaning on the stake, it is worth 1 point. So if you have one that's just leaning on top of it, as long as it's touching, that is worth 1 point, and it is called a leaner. If a player's hula hoop or noodles are closer than any of the other opponents, so say for example, you and the person you're playing against toss the noodles or the hula hoops, whatever piece of equipment you choose, and no one has it touching the stake or no one has it around the stake, whoever has its closest gets 1 point. And then the main, if it is closer than any of the other ones, so say you have one that is closest but it's not touching, and the person you're playing against has some out here that aren't anywhere near it, that closest one is worth 2 points. A ringer is what we all try to aim for and what we all are trying to do. And a ringer is when the hula hoop or the pool noodle are completely around the stake. So whoever gets it completely around it, they get 3 points. So you can add up your scores this way, or you can just play for fun and try to get as many on the stake as possible. You know, as long as you're going out there, getting outside, getting some exercise, and having fun while you're doing it is definitely, you know, a great way to spend your summer playing some backyard games. So I do want to wrap up our lesson today, and if anybody has any questions about any of the backyard games that we talked about today, feel free to type that up in chat. I'm gonna see if I can pull up my chat here. Oh yes, I see someone wrote, Fatima, will the instructions be shared after the session? Absolutely. I will make sure to drop that link in there in the chat, and I can do that right now. So that you have this whole slideshow presentation. Let me just get this for you. And then
what I'll do as well is I'll take this link and put it on our Facebook page in the event listing as well. So if you go back to the event on your Facebook page, if your family does that, they'll be able to pull that too. So will be plenty of ways to grab it.
Awesome. Okay, so I did drop that link in there, and yeah, be on the lookout for the Facebook link for that as well. It does show you step-by-step directions on how to make the game and also how to play the game. But like we said earlier, you know, coming up with your own rules, as long as you and whoever you're playing with agree to the rules, and you're outside having fun. You know, that's what being outside, especially playing backyard games, is all about. Any other questions today about the backyard games, or any questions for me about PA virtual, physical education, or health? I'd be more than happy to answer any of those questions as well.
Now, I do have a question about, you know, especially like with the pool noodle bowling. If someone wanted to make a bigger version of it, because that's what people see a lot of times is on TV, they might make bigger things where they do like some kind of inflatable pool toy or something like that, and then use like a basketball. Would that be okay?
Absolutely, yeah. And I also was thinking too, when I brought up about the pop bottles, you could also use 2-liter bottles, so they'd be even bigger, and you could use like a basketball or a soccer ball, something a little bit bigger, to try to knock those over. And if you're using a soccer ball, instead of even rolling the soccer ball, you could even kick it and practice some of your soccer moves by trying to knock over the 2-liter bottles, or even like a gallon of milk bottle, something like that, or a half a gallon of milk. Anything that you can come up with that makes it even larger than life and more exciting. You could even challenge yourself by putting a little bit of water in that 2-liter pop bottle. too, to make it a little bit more challenging. You'd have to throw a little bit harder or kick a little bit harder. That'd be a great way to do it as well.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing this. I think we got some new ways to have some fun, which is awesome. As a reminder, I will be sharing that link as well on Facebook, and we still have it here. If anybody has any other questions, I will stop what I'm doing to ask them, so feel free to put them in chat. But I just want to remind people, we do have some more summer camp sessions coming up, and I'm going to share that link right now. They are free for everybody. You don't even have to be in the state of Pennsylvania, let alone be a PA virtual student to attend. I welcome you to come out and check them out like you have been already these first week and a half. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Also, don't forget to fill out that passport, which you can download on that page as well. If anybody does have any questions about the school, anything at all, I'm going to stick around. If you have questions as well for Miss Lyndsay Burneisen, she's going to be around here for a couple minutes too. Beyond that, listen, have a great Tuesday. I hope to see you for the rest of the week. And in the coming weeks, we'll be doing this till July 31st. And if I don't talk to you, have a safe, happy, healthy, and wonderful 4th of July this weekend.